afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Two Saints show with myself, Mark C, and my co-host, Mark H. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. Looking forward to another action-packed show. I'm hoping that, all the listeners are looking after each other and, more importantly, social distancing and staying safe.
Absolutely right. So, just like to remind everybody before we get going today, we have the Two Saints Facebook page. So Two Saints Show on Facebook. Go on there, you'll find our latest podcast up on there. And if you'd like a copy of that sent to you directly, just message us on that page. We also have our YouTube channel, the Two Saints Podcast Show on YouTube. Go on there and you can listen to the podcast on there. We're also now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Acasts. A couple of other platforms probably likely to follow that at some point. And that takes care of that. So coming up for you on today's show, we have Saints news, other football news, Saints transfer news and gossip. Right, so the first two topics today, after we've done our little disclaimer and we come back from that, the first two topics are going to be relating to Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Fiesta FM Southampton 95.0 FM.
Disclaimer. The following program contains language, views and opinions that may be unsuitable for some listeners. This is not necessarily a view or judgment of Fiesta FM, its management, other hosts or advertisers. The show is for entertainment purpose only and is not intended to defame, insult or offend anybody in any shape or form whatsoever. Listeners are advised to exercise caution in their own environment when listening to the show.
Right, welcome back everybody. So, starting off with Ralph Hasenhüttl. And Ralph Hasenhüttl has claimed his first Premier League award. So he's today been awarded the Premier League Manager of the Month accolade for July. It's the second time in 2019-20 that the boss has been nominated, missing out on the prize in January to Liverpool's Jurgen Klopp. Also, there is a second article that relates to that, so we'll include them both together because it makes sense. Ralph Hasenhüttl spoken of his pride for the whole club after he capped a memorable 2019-20 season by winning the Premier League's Manager of the Month award for July. Which is fantastic, Mark. So not only did Danny Ings get some recognition for the great season he had, Ralph Hasenhüttl got recognition for the absolutely phenomenal games and performances since the restart.
Yeah.
So that's got to be credit to what he's done on the training ground, surely.
All I would say is, obviously it's great recognition for Ralph, first Austrian to win a Manager of the Month award, so I'm sure they're cock-a-hoop in his homeland of Austria. The only other thing I would say as well, Mark, is the way I look at the award is it's not just for Ralph, it's for the team performances.
Absolutely.
Over since the sort of restart. So it reflects well on the club and everything else, and it's fantastic news.
Yeah, and also vindication that the club totally stood by the right man in October after that horrific night against Leicester that we all know. The weather was horrific, result was horrific. We won't dwell on it. But fantastic turnaround since then, isn't it? And it's proof that the club backed the right man. And I think you and I were massive fans of Ralph anyway, and we're convinced he was a man for the job. And we've been proved right.
Yeah,
I feel a little bit vindicated, as I'm sure you do as well.
The thing was he had nothing to turn around. It was either the club backed him or they didn't. And it was as simple as that. There was no one else around. But, as we kept saying, Ralph was the right man for the job, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, he masterminded a near-flawless month as the Saints brought the Premier League season to a close, including wins over Man City, AFC Bournemouth and Sheffield United on the final day. Such was Southampton's end-of-season form. They ranked third in the table for points gained during the Premier League restart period. And he fought off competition from the likes of Pep Guardiola, David Moyes, Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to scoop July's award. So some pretty exotic companies in there, Mark. So it's not half bad, is it, if you can better that. In the final 6 games of the prolonged campaign.
He's seen off some illustrious company there, that's for sure. And like I say, Mark, it was richly deserved, and all the Saints fans now can look forward to the new season, hopefully with a degree of optimism now.
Absolutely right. And the run obviously helped to propel the team up to 11th position in the table at the end of the season, and it actually earned him the honour of becoming the first ever Austrian to pick up one of the Premier League's managerial accolades. So fantastic. Another record for Saints, Mark.
Indeed, mate. Indeed.
Right, that sums that up all brilliantly for me. What I would like to say is just a few of the quotes that Ralph came up with, which I think are important to quote. And he said, "I'm very proud for my team, for the whole club, to be honest. Everyone did a fantastic job in July. I think it was a very intense month, to be honest. We knew we only had a short time to prepare for the season. I think we used the time in a very, very good way." When he says season, he obviously means the restart and the small window, because obviously the season was ended and then resumed on June 19th. From the first day, you can feel the guys were fit. They come back in a good shape. We can immediately work on a few deficits we'd seen in very intense analysis of the season to that point. You start well with the first game against Norwich and you build from there, which they absolutely did. They played against a strong opposition, showed where they sort of got to in their development. So he totally deserves it, and it's fantastic for the club, for the players, and for him. But yeah, that sums it all up for me brilliantly.
Very much so. And hopefully he'll share it with the players too, because they deserve it.
Absolutely right. Well, that wraps up those two topics, and we'll move on to the next one after those in a moment.
And the next link is that Ralph Hasenhüttl outlined the key factors behind Saints' stunning end-of-season form. Ralph Hasenhüttl believes bravery and commitment were the key factors to his side's stellar finish, which saw him named Premier League Manager of the Month. Saints jumped up to 11th in the final standings after an unbeaten July, a run which included 3 victories and 3 draws. Manchester City and Sheffield United were among the scouts for Hasenhüttl's men, who also bagged an impressive last-gasp draw against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Hasenhüttl fought off competition from Pep Guardiola, David Moyes, Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to clinch the Manager of the Month award for the first time, and he was pleased his side got some credit for their fine form. Speaking to the Saints website, the boss, who turns 53 today, said, "I'm very proud for my team and for the whole club, to be honest. Everyone did a fantastic job in July and it was a hard goal to come back very strong after the lockdown, and it's wonderful that everybody recognised what we did and what a good job we did. As a manager, always the most important thing is to go your way and be successful with your team, and if you can manage this, and we did it in a fantastic way in July, then it makes life much easier and the work much easier." Discussing the hectic schedule throughout July, which also included matches against Everton, Brighton and Bournemouth, Hasenhüttl added, "I think it was a very, very intense month, to be honest. We knew we only had a short time to prepare for the season, and I think we used the time in a very, very good way. From the first day, you could feel the guys were coming back in a good shape, and we could immediately work on a few deficits we have seen in the very intense analysis of the season to that point. I think we played very brave and tried to make the next step in our development. In the end, we got good results because we played brave and were very committed." Reflecting on the 2 standout results of the month against both Manchester clubs, Hasenhüttl said, "I think it's important for us, especially against Man City at home, to show ourselves and be able to compete against such a team. It's still unbelievable we get a win against such a team, and nearly every player played fantastic, and otherwise it's impossible to win against such a team. Against Man United, I think we were still one step further in our development, and especially the first 20 minutes were fantastic for an away game. Like always in the season in away games, against an informed team, in the end I think it was a deserved point, to be fair. We like to play against these strong teams, they really show us what we have to learn and how good we are." Saints returned from lockdown 14th in the league table, 7 points clear of the relegation zone, and knew after defeating Norwich in their first game back, they were effectively assured of another season in the top flight. But the boss praised the way his side did not take their foot off the pedal to power up to 11th, eventually ending that we don't play for anything because we were 12th or 13th in the league. We tried to climb every position that was possible, and in the end I think position 11 after a very difficult autumn was something nobody expected in the end. There is a climb next. Hopefully I will have a better so we can end in a higher ranking than we did this season. Yeah, all I would add to that, Ralph, is sort out the home form and you're laughing. Mark?
I mean, the thing is it's ironic that the whole basis of the season was on the away form. The thing is yes, we'll go into next of optimism, little bit of confidence going into it. But
Yeah.
the thing is like every football supporter out there knows that the key thing is you take care of your home form first, and then anything you pick up on the road's a bonus. But if you've got good home form, then that obviously is a catalyst to you having a good season.
Absolutely.
Funnily enough, we had the Irish rule reversal where it was all about our away form was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the home form was rubbish. But
Yep.
let's hope that going in the next season we can address that. I mean, I think we can go in the next season with an air of optimism about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was certainly sort of looking at it thinking, we're going to have a few issues for next season. Back in October, I thought, blimey, we're going to be lucky to stay up. But complete turnaround, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic after lockdown. They looked fit and hungry. I thought it was fantastic, to be fair. So, yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Definitely.
So we'll move on to Matt Le Tizier's views on things. And the Saints legend held the professionalism of Hasenhüttl's side. So Saints legend Matt Le Tissier held the professionalism of Ralph Hasenhüttl's charges as they finished the Premier League campaign in sublime fashion. Club icon Le Tissier, who scored 100 Premier League goals for South Coast outfit, believes a top-half finish could be achieved next season. Speaking in his role as a pundit, he told Sky Sports, The professionalism of the players has been an absolute credit to the manager and the football club. When you look at what we've been capable of in the past few weeks, we've just played Man City at home, Man United away, Everton away, unbeaten with 5 points. You look at that and think, if you take that form into next season, what can we realistically achieve? From what I've seen, I'd expect a top half finish from this group. I don't think there's an awful lot more I can add to that other than the quotes he's made, Mark. Any sort of take on that from yourself?
Yeah, I mean, all I would say, Mark, is as you know, we're a show that covers everything.
Absolutely.
And that includes Saints legends. But as you know, my feelings on opinions from ex-footballers, right, I tend to gloss over them. But, you know, for the intents and purposes of this,
yeah,
obviously Matt's feelings has to be taken into consideration because he is a Saints legend.
Absolutely.
But, by and large, as you know, I don't normally include them.
Yep. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, I think definitely, obviously he's got a far more involved role at the club now, hasn't he, these days? But certainly sometimes when it comes to the football side of things, it's definitely worth including what he says, isn't it? So we'll move on to the next topic, which is Hasenhüttl's influence growing at Saints with new B team. So this is regards to the fact that, according to a report, Saints will take the restructuring of their academy to the next level by making a move to basically incorporate a B team. So what it means is there won't effectively be an under-23 team. It'll be a team made up of youth players and senior players who aren't possibly featuring and those coming back from injury, which is probably an absolutely brilliant idea, Mark, and it's something that's obviously used at the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Borussia Dortmund. They already use those. Brentford, I believe, have also implemented that as well. So the move, if it goes ahead, will further show the influence of Ralph Hasenhüttl on the club and point towards a sustained long-term spell at St Mary's. And I think we both agree that long-term strategy is definitely something they needed to look at, isn't it? And it will give continuity across the club, which has got to be a good thing, surely.
Definitely. I mean, look, my own feelings on it is that, you know, I think they're going to kind of retain as well a bit of an under-23 team, Mark, right? Yeah. But I think we're both agreed that one of the biggest issues we had within the club was that you had people coming back from injury and they're being included in the squad, but yet they had no game time under their belts because basically they weren't being featured in under 23 games.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So obviously having a B team is a way to make sure that they're getting exposure, and if they've been injured, you know, they're able to work their way back to full fitness through the B side.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and I think we both did say that last season that we felt that some of the players did need to play in the under-23s, didn't we? We said the likes of Shea Adams and those players that were coming back from fitness and weren't featuring should definitely be involved in that. So moving forward, I think it's definitely, as you agree as well, it's definitely a good idea, something they need to implement. It's good to see that as well. So onwards and upwards, and let's hope that it makes a big difference to the academy.
Yeah, it's definitely a plus for the football club, and it's great to see that, you know, obviously Ralph's influence on the club is starting to become more widespread, which, you know, I totally endorse at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me too. Totally agree on that one. Yeah, for me, absolutely brilliant. Let's wait and see the fruits of his labours, as they say. Right, moving on to our next story. This is Danny Ings, who's received a Player of the Season nomination. So he's made the coveted shortlist for the 2019-20 Premier League Player of the Season. Can't say I'm surprised. Obviously, the impressive form of him has caught the eye of fans and pundits alike, not just with Southampton. Now the club's star striker has been recognised with an end-of-season award nomination. Lost out to the Golden Boot, obviously, to Jamie Vardy by just a single goal, but he's emerged as one of the top flight's most lethal frontmen this season, and no player has scored more goals from open play without penalties than Ings during the 19-20 season. So to put that in perspective, only Matt Le Tissier, 25 in 93-94, and James Beattie, 23 in 2002-03, have ever scored more in a single campaign for Saints. A worthy nomination, Mark, I would say.
Very much so, mate. I mean, it's a richly deserved one. I mean, I'm just interested to know, I know it's the Premier League Player of the Season, but I'm just interested to know how they actually vote for it, whether it's a public vote. The only thing is if it's a public vote, you would worry that, you know, the more populist teams that have a player on that short list, you know, they're going to vote more. So therefore, Danny may not win the award, but fingers crossed, obviously, that he does. But we'll be able to tell the listeners next week whether he's won the award or not.
Absolutely, and there's actually a 7-player shortlist for this. And the players that are on the list with him are Kevin De Bruyne, Jordan Henderson, Nick Pope, Sadio Mane, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jamie Vardy. Voting closes at 6 p.m. BST on Monday 10th of August, the winner announced on Sunday the 16th. It says this story was actually via the Southampton FC website, and there is a button there that says vote for Danny Ings. So I would assume if you press that button, you either put your vote in via the Saints website, or it will go to a link that will enable you to vote for him. So it sounds as though it's a public vote, Mark.
Well, as soon as you read out the short list, I thought to myself, well, Danny Ings has won that hands down. But unfortunately, it's down to the popular vote, and the popular vote will probably be somebody like Kevin De Bruyne.
Absolutely.
But trust me, if everybody was being non-partisan, right, and actually looking at the season as a whole, Danny Ings would have cruised that nomination list, to be fair.
Definitely.
You know?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. Right, so moving on from that, Moussa Djenepo has been Moussa Djenepo's strike at Sheffield United has been shortlisted for the 1920 Premier League goal of the season. A pretty good goal, to be fair, Mark. I remember watching it and I thought, oh, that's not a bad one at all. So again, there is a button on the Saints website to vote for Moussa Djenepo. Your thoughts on that?
Well, all I would say, Mark, was the goal in question was the goal that he scored away at Sheffield United, and I was there. And to be fair, it takes something to sort of get me on my feet these days, because it takes me a while to get on my feet. And I have to say, as soon as the ball hit the back of the net, I was on my feet. I was doing a Lazarus, you know. No, as I say, again, it would be richly deserved if he won the award, because it was a hell of a strike.
It certainly was, yeah. And I remember, to be fair, when I saw it, I thought, he's done so well to hold the defender off, because he probably was wrestling with him, wasn't he? Probably grappled with the defender and showing the strength and fortitude to hold him off. And to finish with a plum like that, I mean, wow, what a finish, fantastic. Wherever you've any game, to be fair, it certainly lit up the match, didn't it? Because it needed something, didn't it? It was quite a dour game, to be fair.
We definitely need that Moussa Djenepo back.
Oh, absolutely.
All cylinders next season. That's the Moussa Djenepo that's missing at the minute.
Yeah, I couldn't help thinking as the goal went in, there was a little tune in my head going, whoa, 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 it's magic. It was a pretty good goal, to be fair. Anyway, moving on from there, we could talk about that all day. It was a great goal. Anyway, so move on to our next story, which is involves Jake Vokins, who's now actually taking tips from Ryan Bertrand, having previously cleaned his boots, Mark, which I think is absolutely great. So obviously, there's probably not a better player to get some tips from if you're playing at left back than Ryan Bertrand. He's been there, seen it, and done it. He's won the Champions League, played for England. So he's not a bad bloke to get some tips from, is he? What's your take on it?
I mean, I find his direct quotes in relation to Ryan Bertrand quite interesting, and obviously, you know, Ryan sometimes gets a bad press because obviously there's sometimes on the pitch he looks like he's disinterested.
Yep.
But I mean, when you read articles like that, you know, it's further from the truth, because obviously he's helping to encourage Jake Vokins and everything else. In terms of, you know, how to carry himself, positions that he should be taking up on the field and everything else, you know, which is great.
It is, yeah. Jake himself said, learning from the more experienced players in the squad and training with them day in, day out has helped me improve my game and develop as a player. Ryan's definitely helped me a lot. We chat during training, and after training he's given me tips on what I can do to be the best fullback I can. I was cleaning his boots, and now I'm training with him every day. It's a bit surreal. He also said, when he came into the club, he brought his own philosophy. This is relating to Houghton, who I believe. When he came into the club, he brought his own philosophy of how he wanted to play. So it's about me learning and understanding what he wants from me as a player to develop. Definitely want to make more appearances and prove the manager I can trust me. If I have to take the opportunities I hopefully get from him and keep working hard. Well, if you keep listening to Ryan and learning from him, then you probably do quite well, Jake, to be fair.
Well, no, he'd definitely be on the right track, wouldn't he? That's for sure.
Absolutely.
He's learning from one of the best at the end of the day.
Well, as I say, Ryan's been there, seen it and done it, and he's won the Champions League, he's played for England, and he's been a great servant for Saints, so it's absolutely fantastic. So, moving on to one of the good news stories, and this was something that obviously we followed pretty closely during the lockdown, didn't we, Mark? And we thought it was great. And this relates to Saints' One's impact in the community. So, obviously, as we know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Southampton Football Club and Saints Foundation launched the Saints' One campaign, which was an outreach and engagement project to support the communities. And over the past 4 months, they've launched initiatives to help those that were isolated and vulnerable, including Saints Foundation delivering over 13,000 meals and 2,000 prescriptions to those most in need across the city. And they also delivered a range of resources and content to help keep fans active, entertained and connected during the challenging time that we've been through, with club staff making over 4,000 calls to season ticket holders over 65. Absolutely fantastic, Mark. Couldn't praise enough on that. And it kept us smiling all the way through lockdown, didn't it? It was just good news after good news after good news.
Two things, two words sum it up for me. Pride.
Yep.
Pride in the club.
Yep.
And proud. The other word is proud. And I was very, very proud of the club. Very, very proud, obviously, of the Saints Foundation as an arm of the club.
Absolutely.
Because, the two are kind of linked.
Absolutely.
But what I would say is there's two words there, pride and proud. And
Absolutely.
those are the two words that some, like I say, we led from the front in everything during the lockdown, Mark,
Absolutely.
And I was immensely proud of being a Saints fan.
Yeah, you and me both, Mark, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't be prouder, to be fair. Absolutely fantastic. And as I say, it just kept us smiling all the way through lockdown and stuff we were doing. And it's right to say the South Coast is definitely ours.
Yeah. And it definitely stopped us from criticising for a while, because the thing is while we endorse everything that they do off the pitch, we don't necessarily endorse everything that happens on the pitch.
Absolutely right. So moving on to some more good news, and that is the news that Staplewood campus has welcomed increased activity this month with the return of Southampton's under-18 and under-23 teams. The youngsters are now back in action at the training ground as they begin building up to a new season, marking the first time since March players have been with the teammates kicking a football, something that seemed so ordinary just a few months ago. Academy Director Matt Howe spoke of the excitement of being back and the importance of that return for the players. He said, "It seems like it's been a long time coming, really. Obviously, with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's been a lot of organising and planning going on in the background, which allowed us to come back. It was important to have them back together as soon as we got the green light to do so, as we wanted to firstly help protect that first team bubble whilst they were completing the Premier League season. Socially and mentally, for the lads to be back training and be together as a group was important. They've certainly got smiles on their faces now they're back in." Academy manager Ed Vahid believes that although lockdown had its obvious challenges, it's also been used as an opportunity to improve in certain areas. Everyone responded really well, he said. We've adapted well. Whilst it's not been ideal, we've all accepted we're going to lose some things operating virtually by not having that social contact in games. We've strengthened in other areas. Players have gained a lot, such as leadership skills, which they've demonstrated through showing creativity, as each player has different living circumstances and certain resources. We've had many things we can't replicate, but many things have been gained. I think it's credit to everyone that we've adapted reasonably well. Yep, great to have them back, Mark.
It is, mate. It must be great for the players as well in those situations to be back, and it is specifically the under-18s and under-23s, because don't forget their seasons got cut short.
Absolutely right.
Their seasons weren't finished.
Absolutely right.
So I'm sure the boys are glad to be back and raring to go for the new season.
Oh, definitely.
And like I said to you last night, I believe that there's already a friendly in the next 10 days.
Absolutely.
With players and finally sort of blow away a few cobwebs and everything else, even though they're in the middle of training now. And if you're it's a blessing to be back in training and doing something you love.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and obviously in line with the fact that there's going to be a return, obviously, for the under-23s, I believe you've got some details, Mark, some further details about the under-23s as well. I believe they've got a match coming up. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, they're due to play Tottenham. I think it'll be within the next 10 days. I think they're due to play Tottenham at Tottenham's ground. So, and obviously that links into the fact that obviously the under-18s, the under-23s, and the women's Saints football team all use that ground for their home matches.
Absolutely right. Yep. The reason I didn't mention this before, I'm now going to include it, is an article relating to the Saints Academy, and that is the news that young striker Luke Pearce has actually joined the academy on a scholarship from Walsall, Mark.
Yes, I mean, as I say, I can't really say too much about him because I don't know that much about him, Mark. I mean, obviously, they've earmarked him, they brought him to the football club because they see something in him. And for the next few years, it'll be about developing him and seeing if he can make any sort of impression I would have thought firstly in the under 23s, and then see if he can make the step up the senior squad.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I can actually give you a bit more information, everybody. So, Pearce's reputation had blossomed with the West Midlands club, starting regularly for the under-18s team, scoring for the under-23s and making the bench for the first team during last season's leasing.com trophy campaign, all at the age of just 15. Luke Pearce said, "It means a lot. Most kids dream of getting to this point in their career and coming to a Category 1 club with facilities like this. A couple of years ago, if you'd told me I'd be here, I wouldn't have believed you. But you can achieve anything with hard work. I knuckled down and here I am. It's a dream and an honour to be here. I feel I will fit in well here." Academy Director Matt Howe added, "We're very pleased to welcome Luke to the club. As well as bringing our own players through and developing them from a very early age, we've also developed a strong recruitment policy to supplement this work, with the aim of bringing some of the top young talent from the UK and Europe into our academy. Luke is someone who falls into this category. He's a very promising young striker, and we feel with the coaching and support we can offer him that he will be able to maximise his potential with the club." So we'll certainly be watching that with bated breath, and we'll certainly be looking forward to seeing what happens in his development, Mark, and how well he blossoms.
I mean, we'll wish him well. Like every Saints player, anybody who dons the shirt, we'll wish him well. We keep an eye on his development, and hopefully we'll be reporting about him in the months and years ahead.
Absolutely. Yep, totally agree with you there. Right, and at that point, I think it's a very good time to take our first break of today's show. And when we come back from that, we'll be getting into the next segment of today's show, which is other football news.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show.
Yep, we certainly are here with everything in the Two Saints Show. So, other football news links. So what we do is we do our usual on these. We'll rattle through the headlines and we'll come back to the ones that take our interest or spike our interest and we want to debate, Mark. So, Premier League news and transfers. Premier League clubs will still in Europe to get delayed to start to next season. Arsenal plan to make 55 staff redundant because of coronavirus pandemic. Premier League clubs vote against use of 5 substitutes for 2020-21. Financial fair play. Wolves punished by UEFA after overspending. Exclusive Premier League contingency plans for future pandemic. Craig Shakespeare named Aston Villa assistant head coach. Nathan Ake, Man City signed Bournemouth defender for 40 million. Ferran Torres, Man City signed Valencia winger. Kostas Tsimikas, Liverpool signed left back from Olympiacos. And that will take us to the next segment, which we'll be covering, which will be Championship, League 1 and 2, Scottish, Women, European and more news, but that will be coming up after other football news. So, back to the start of the football news, Mark, and that is Premier League clubs still in Europe to get delayed start to next season. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, it just ties in because obviously, those that are still in Europe, they've had an extended season after the domestic season finished. So obviously, you would try to give them a few extra weeks because obviously they have still been in training because they're still in Europe and stuff like that. So not an issue for me, And in actual fact, they'll probably have even less time off, to be honest with you, than players that have just finished the domestic season. Yeah.
Well, Wolves is a good example, isn't it? I think they've had, 385 days their season's been, I think you said?
Yeah, 300.
Crazy that, isn't it?
Or 85 days Wolves season was.
Crazy season.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, madness. Absolute madness. Wow, strange on that. But yeah, I think that's probably all we can really cover on that. There's not an awful lot we can really add to that, is there, really?
No, not really, mate. I mean, as I say, some of the articles are for people's information, and some of the other articles we can expand on and discuss.
Well, this one we're definitely going to expand on because I know this has definitely annoyed you, Mark. It's certainly annoyed me and angered me a little bit. And this is Arsenal's plan to make 55 staff redundant because of the coronavirus pandemic. Arsenal plan to make 55 staff redundant because of the financial impact of the coronavirus pandemic. First team players and head coach Mikel Arteta agreed a 12.5% pay cut in April. Arsenal's executive team also agreed to waive more than a third of their salaries over the next 12 months. However, the club say they now face more significant and longer lasting reductions in our revenue than we all hoped. How on earth are Arsenal making 55 people redundant and Saints are making none redundant, Mark? It baffles me. How on earth is that even possible with the backers that Arsenal have? That really annoys me.
The thing that gets to me, Mark, is Arsenal can afford to pay £300,000 a week, to Methil Ozil, right? They can afford to offer contracts to William at Chelsea, who's recently joined Arsenal, and he's reported to be on £200,000 a week. Similarly, Mr. Aubameyang's new contract is reported to be £250,000 a week. I tell you what about, because it's reported that they're basically, Arsenal are saving themselves £2.5 million. Right? Now, to me, £2.5 million to Arsenal is a dip in the ocean.
Absolutely.
Why not just not bother signing William? And you've saved yourself.
It says here.
And those people those 55 people get to keep their jobs.
A couple of things that really stand out here, and this has proper got my goat now as well. We know this is upsetting and difficult for our dedicated staff, and our focus is on managing this as sensitively as possible. Is that right? The redundancies are in the football, commercial and administration departments, with the majority coming in the latter two. However, there will also be cuts to staff benefits, capital projects and discretionary projects, but investments will continue to be made in the playing staff, and Arsenal's transfer plans are unaffected. Oh, I'm sure those 55 staff you're laying off are going to be more than appreciative of that fact. That's an absolute joke.
To me, that encapsulates, that article just encapsulates everything that's wrong with football.
Absolutely.
Everything that's wrong. It's like it's business as usual, but if you just happen to be an average Joe who's working at Arsenal, you're going to lose your job. But sure, don't worry about it, because our spending ability in the transfer market remains unaffected.
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand how a club with Arsenal's kind of backing, the amount of money within Arsenal, they're doing this purely and simply to save £2.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The logic just seems warped to me, and there are certain articles that you read within the football world where you just sit there and you think to yourself, this is one of those where they've lost touch with reality, they've lost touch with their fan base, they've lost touch with the wider football supporting community.
Yeah, definitely. Can't argue with that.
And Mark, just to say, if our club was to do something similar, don't be worried that it'd be a shame to come out and name our club.
No.
Because it would be.
No,
it would be.
I'd be exactly the same as that. Anyway, let's move off of that to slightly better news for some of the teams lower down the pyramid of the Premier League, in the fact that there has been a vote and the Premier League have decided against the use of 5 substitutes for the 2020-21 season. I can hear every club outside the top 6 of the Premier League going, yes! And every club in the top 6 going, oh, Horlicks. Yeah, not good news for those that have got great world-class benches, but for clubs that don't have world-class benches, fantastic news, Mark.
I mean, who needs 5 subs anyway? I mean, I get that maybe, during the project restart, but not during the regular season. There's no need for 5 substitutes.
Absolutely.
The thing is they're keeping the water breaks, which aren't really water breaks. Yep. And I sort of sit there and I think, well, what's the point in keeping those? I mean, it's going to be inclement weather for most of the season.
Absolutely
anyway.
Right.
But then, you've got to have your Americanisms in British sport. So I suppose, the thing is, as we all know, the water breaks aren't water breaks. They're times out to get your coaching instructions on the pitch across if you're the manager.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it totally infuriates me with certain things. But the drinks breaks is they're tactical breaks, as you say. 5 substitutes frustrated the living daylights out of me because I just felt it benefited the bigger teams. So I'm quite happy that it's not happening now. I'm quite happy that advantage, as I would call it, has been removed.
I'm just glad the clubs, who I'm assuming make the decision along with the Premier League, have seen sense on it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with you more on that one, to be fair. Right, that moves us on to our next story, and that is, this revolves around financial fair play, and this kind of annoys me as well. So, Wolves, as we all know, have got a really good agent on their books, Jorge Mendes, known as the super agent. And it seems that Wolves will only be allowed to register 23 players if they qualify for the Champions League next season after they failed to meet UEFA's financial fair play target. Obviously, they beat Olympiacos to reach the last date of the Europa League, which was obviously yesterday, we'll get to that possibly later on. I'm not sure if we will or not. But anyway, it's the first time Wolves have reached the quarterfinals of a European competition in 48 years. However, even if they manage to get there, it will not be able to register a full quota of 25 A-list players as punishment for spending too much. European football's governing body UEFA revealed the information after confirming it reached a settlement agreement with Wolves, who play Sevilla in Duisburg on Tuesday. In addition, Wolves agreed to report a maximum break-even deficit of 30 million in the financial year ending in 2020 and to finally reach in the 2020-21 season an aggregate break-even result for the financial years ending in 2019, 20 and 21. Reminds me of the season Pompey basically bought the FA Cup. And they got hauled over the coals for it, didn't they? Fair play. Yeah. Bournemouth have breached fair play as well at some point. They got punished for it. It just keeps happening, Mark. What's the point of having fair play if you're going to keep breaking it?
To be honest with you, that was administered by the Premier League. It wasn't administered by UEFA.
No.
I think the issue that I always have is if you break the rules, then you have to come down firm on clubs. That is always my rule of thumb.
Yeah.
You've got to come down firm on them. And the thing is like, what the sort of sanction that UEFA has imposed on Wolves, it's not that harsh a sanction. Okay, so they're only allowed to register 23 players, where normally they can register 25 in European competition. All I would say to that is big wowee.
Yeah.
I just want to turn around and say to the listeners as well that, the thing is Wolves overspent the year that they got promoted into the Premier League. And I'll be interested to see that if they ever get demoted back into the Championship, whether the powers that be that run the Championship, actually take them out basically in relation to the financial fair play.
Exactly.
Because they did it with QPR when QPR came back down into the Championship,
Yep.
So be interesting to see what happens there. But
definitely.
in the meantime, Wolves are making hay while the sun shines.
Aren't they just? Right, so moves on to our next story. Premier League contingency plan for future curtailment could see just half of fixtures played. So the Premier League could consider the 2020-21 season complete in the event of just half of all fixtures being contested, Standard Sport has learned. Project Restart allowed for the last campaign to be successfully completed following a 3-month hiatus due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic set to loom over next season and amid fears of a second wave, the Premier League are weighing up contingency plans. Liverpool's pursuit of a First League title in 30 years was almost halted by calls from several clubs for 2019-20 to be rendered null and void. But under Premier League proposals for next term, the top flight would have already passed the threshold for the season to be considered valid. Those plans, which are set to be discussed at a meeting of clubs next week, would see final placings decided by points per game in the event of 50% or more of all scheduled fixtures having been played. That would mean relegation, European qualification and the destination of the title all being decided on that basis, though 14 of the 20 member clubs would still have to vote in favour of the curtailment. Should the 50% mark be missed, so teams having played 18 or fewer games of the league season, there would be no league winners or relegation for that season. The Premier League, meanwhile, would engage with UEFA in order to decide which of its clubs would compete in European competition the following year. Top flight clubs will convene next week to discuss the proposals, with the aim of making the recommendations at a further meeting on September the 3rd. Now, given they had this opportunity to do this season and didn't, are they really going to do that next season, Mark? I just don't see it.
And I don't know. I mean, it depends whether, and I'm not an expert and we're a football show, but obviously it depends whether, it takes hold again over the winter months. The only reason why I picked up on the story, Mark, and I'm sure you'd agree with me here, is, we are notorious slow starters in any season, especially in recent years. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking to myself, well, if they're, the danger is if we played 50%, then, it doesn't go to a vote. It'll be done as it is if over 50% of the games have been played.
Absolutely.
And those results and everything else and where you are in the table will stand. And it's a slight concern, although I'm fairly confident for us going into the new season, but it is a slight concern given that in recent years we have had very slow starts.
Absolutely.
And you're sort of sitting there thinking, flip me, I hope with 50% of the games gone, we're not in the bottom three.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. Right, I think we'll move on to our next story. This relates to Craig Shakespeare. So we'll see what Mark makes of this one. Interesting one. Craig Shakespeare has been named Aston Villa assistant head coach. So they've appointed Aston Villa have appointed former Leicester manager Craig Shakespeare as assistant head coach. The Villains stayed in the Premier League by 1 point last season under head coach Dean Smith. They already have 2 assistant head coaches, former captain John Terry and Richard O'Kelly. I was keen to add some Premier League know-how, and Craig certainly has that in abundance, Smith said. He's a vastly experienced coach. Shakespeare obviously was assistant to Claudio Ranieri at Leicester City when they won the Premier League in 2016, before taking a manager's job in 2017. He's also worked as an assistant at Everton and Watford since then. Smith and Shakespeare also played together at Walsall in the 1980s. So a good appointment, Mark, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, as an assistant manager, and given that, there are sort of flaws in Aston Villa's backroom staff, let's put it like that there, it's good for, Dean to have a number 2 in alongside him, because obviously the likes of John Terry and Richard O'Kelly are both sort of coaches. So, hopefully with Craig Shakespeare's experience, Dean can have somebody in alongside him to bounce ideas off and stuff like that there. I mean, the thing is that the one thing that sort of raised an eyebrow for me is like Craig Shakespeare obviously has the connection with Nigel Pearson, the Leicester connection, as the article says, was the assistant when Ranieri was in charge and Leicester won the league, and then subsequently the following season went on to manage them for a period of time, but it didn't really work out. But I mean, Craig Shakespeare's role in football is a number 2, and obviously with his experience, it should be a good appointment for Aston Villa going forward.
Definitely. Yeah, and hopefully it'll avoid them being in the situation they've been in this season, I guess is what they're thinking is.
I think that depends on whether they keep hold of the key players, but absolutely. I'm not going to mention any names.
No. I think I know the players you're probably referring to be fair. But transfer window's not over yet, anything could happen. Speaking of the transfer window, this is just a brief one, obviously. Nathan Ake, Man City have signed a Bournemouth defender for 40 million. So they've signed Bournemouth defender, centre-back Nathan Ake for 40 million. The Netherlands international has agreed a 5-year contract at the Etihad, described joining Pep Guardiola's side as a dream. Excuse me. Pep is a manager admirers across the world. What he's done in the game speaks for itself, says the 25-year-old. The success he's had is unbelievable, and the style of football he plays really appeals to me. Excuse me. It's understood there is an additional 1 million in add-ons as part of the deal. What do you make of that one, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Bournemouth need the money. Straight away, automatically, they need the money. So they've got money in. I'm sure there's money that will come in for other players.
Absolutely.
In terms of Nathan Ake, are we surprised that he's the first one out the door and he went for the money that he went for? I'm not. I would have actually thought he would have went for a bit more than 40 odd million.
Yep.
I would have thought it would have been near the 50.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest about it. I was surprised how quickly Bournemouth accepted the offer. I thought they might have played the waiting game and seen if anybody had come in with a higher bid.
Yeah,
there was enough suitors out there. Both Manchester clubs were interested. And it would have been interesting to see if they had maximised the price value for him.
Well, there's only 2 things I've ever seen out of the traps quicker than that. One was Usain Bolt and the other was the ground. So I don't think I've ever seen anything out of the traps quicker than that.
The thing is I think that tells you everything you need to know about Bournemouth's play in many ways, because as soon as someone's came in and made an offer, And yes, it's a good offer. Don't get me wrong, and it's up to them whether they accept it or not.
Yep.
But my point is there could have been a bit more there, and they accepted the first offer, and you just sort of sit there and you think, obviously they had bills to pay, so they were desperate to get the money in.
Absolutely. Oh, I've just had a message in, Mark, from Greg Dixon, so we'll see what Greg had to say. This actually relates, I believe, to what we were discussing in regards to substitutes, etc. And Greg's actually added in, get football back to being standardised with a 90-minute game, no drinks break, and 3 subs from 5. And take the Americanism out of the game. So anything you'd like to add to Greg's remarks there before we do anything extra on top of what we've already done?
Yeah, I mean, all I would say there is endorse everything that Greg says. I mean, I don't agree with times out and drinks breaks and all the rest of it. I mean, I get it. You know, if we were playing a summer sport, I get it, because obviously in this heat, and trust me, I'm in a pool here myself.
Yeah.
You know, in this heat, I understand drinks breaks, but in the middle of the autumn season or the winter season, do me a favour.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Right, so last little story we're going to do before we go to the news, which is coming up shortly. Man City have completed the signing of Valencia winger Ferran Torres for €23 million, which is £20.87 million. He's City's first summer signing and replaces Germany forward Leroy Sané, who left on 3rd of July for Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich. The 20-year-old has signed a 5-year contract at the Etihad. Every player wants to be involved in attacking teams, and Man City are one of the most attacking in world football, Torres said. I'm so happy to be joining City. City's director of football, Tixi Begiristain, I probably got that pronunciation wrong, but I gave it a good go anyway, added, we've followed Ferran's progress closely and have been very impressed. He's young and still developing, but his technical qualities are exactly what we're looking for in a winger. He's quick, direct, can create space with his one movement, and is capable of producing match-winning moments. City have also had a £40 million bid for Bournemouth centre-back Nathan Ake accepted, which we just spoke about. What do you make of the lad? Do you know anything about him, Mark?
Yeah,
he's obviously from Valencia.
What I would say is the fella who signed for them, you know, City's been tracking him for a while, so I'm that surprised that they've made the move, you know, this summer. Not particularly. Just going back to the Nathan Ake thing, Mark, is, you know, although we haven't seen who else is going to be moved out of City over the summer,
yep.
I think it is important to say that one of the reasons probably why City didn't fare so well in the league last season was because they never replaced Vincent Kompany.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think, you know, I'm not saying there's a direct correlation, but I think the fact that City have gone out and bought Nathan Ake, hopefully that helps to address the fact that they lost Vincent Kompany last season and never replaced him. And that affected their chances in winning the league. That's my belief anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, going back to the Spanish lad that they've signed, Torres, I mean, all I would say is it's one of those where the club's been tracking the player for a while, and obviously after a while they've got their man. It's a bit like obsession with Nathan Redmond.
Yep.
And then eventually he was able to sign him for Saints.
Yep, absolutely right. Yep. But also, I think there were rumours that John Stones might be out on his way out of Man City to another club. So if that happens, it makes sense they're signing Ake, doesn't it? So anyway,
yeah, exactly.
And then we'll be covering Championship, League 1 and 2, Scottish women's football, European and more news. And when we come back from that, we'll be doing the topics I've just covered. Right, we'll be right back after this.
It's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saint Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
So the last topic we had under other football news, this was the news that Kostas Tsimikas had signed for Liverpool from Olympiacos, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, am I that surprised? Not really. He's a left back. You know, you have Trent Alexander-Arnold there, I think, or it's Andrew Robertson. I can't remember which is which, but you know they obviously needed a backup in that position. I know that James Milner, who you know ostensibly is a midfielder, you know he used to fill in either of the full-back positions. So obviously, you know it's a top. I mean, Liverpool supporters and probably the club would look at it as a top grade signing. So obviously he's there as a backup to either, Trent Alexander or Andy Robertson.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're probably right on that one. Yeah, so there we go. So that wraps that section of the show. So we'll move on to what we normally do. Rattle through the headlines, come back to those we want to talk about a bit more in depth. League One and League Two clubs to vote to introduce a salary cap. Macclesfield Town relegated after EFL wins points appeal. Hearts and Partick Thistle each fined £2,500 for starting court battle. England women, Phil Neville's successor could be appointed next week. Robin Van Persie returns to Foreign Order as coach. Statue campaign for black footballer reaches goal. And that brings us to the end of that section. And we'll be doing Saints transfer news, etc. after that. So we'll go right back to the start of that. Championship, League One and League Two. Mark. So we'll move on to the next article. This is regards to Jason Tindall, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is unless you were living under a rock, are you surprised, from a point of continuity and everything else from Bournemouth, are you surprised that the number 2 at Bournemouth becomes the number 1 after the number 1 steps down? Is it that surprising? No, it's not. I mean, you could see that appointment coming a mile off.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Come Christmas, if they're doing well, they'll be referring into him as Jason Tinsel, won't they?
But I mean, look, all I would say is it's his first top job. It's his first job being his own man and stuff like that there. And, and I mean this genuinely, I wish him well in the job.
Absolutely.
Because it's gonna be hard for him, because irrespective of him being given any sort of reassurances, I guarantee you there'll be people sold from underneath his feet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be hoping that he holds on to the core of players, isn't he? And I think the Bournemouth fans will be hoping that a core of players will stay and it'll be good enough to get them back up straight away.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, let's be honest. There's enough experience there from when the last came up from the Championship. You got your Steve Cooks, and you've got your Andrew Sermons, and you've got your Dan Goslins and people like that there. And those are the people that the club will be dependent on. The stalwarts that have been at the club for a few seasons and have the experience of getting the club promoted from the Championship. Those are the players that they'll be dependent on come next season.
Yeah.
It won't be the Jefferson Lermers or the Philip Billings or people like that there. It will basically be the stalwarts at that football club.
Yep.
Along with some of the English-based players that they've signed, from last season, like the Lloyd Kellys and people like that.
Yep. Okay, so we'll move on from that one. I think we've covered Jason Tindall and Bournemouth quite well there. League One and Two clubs vote to introduce salary cap, Mark. Because plans for salary caps in League One and League Two are unlawful and unenforceable, says the Professional Footballers Association. Clubs voted for a limit of £2.5 million and £1.5 million for the respective divisions. That's wages, bonuses, taxes and image rights, plus agents and other relevant fees will be included within the cap, but bonuses gained from promotion or progression in cuts will be exempt. Clubs will be fined or face further sanctions if they exceed the limits. However, the PFA reacted to Friday's vote by saying it's disappointed with the outcome. The Football League's ignored its legal obligation, get my words out, put my teeth back in, legal obligation to consult with the PFA and Professional Football Negotiating and Consultative Committee. As such, legal advice we've received is clear: the salary cap envisaged by the EFL will be unlawful and unenforceable.
All I would say to that, Mark, is it's a favourite chestnut of mine. Okay, I'm a great believer in that. It should be equality across the board. There should be a set budget determined in what division you're in, right? This is what you have to spend. That this is the certain amount that you can't go over, and let's see, because people go on about level playing fields and all the rest of it. Let's see how good some of these managers actually are.
Absolutely right.
Let's see if you can actually manage a football club.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But it's a shame, and I think it's sensible that there should be definitely a salary cap
Yep.
brought in the lower leagues. You
Yep,
know, I'd
definitely.
like to see it. You know, personally, that I'd like to see it across the board.
Absolutely.
You know, because the thing is, Mark, it's not, and people say, oh, that sort of thing's draconian. But the point is we're not in the era of Jimmy Hill anymore, right? We're not in that era, you know. And the thing is if we have sensible salary caps, and I do mean sensible salary caps, you know, and the players and the clubs are agreeable to it would definitely make for a more interesting league. It'd definitely be a much more of a level playing field for every club.
Absolutely. So we move on to the next story. This relates to Macclesfield Town. So again, I'll read the first sort of paragraph and a bit of that, and we'll go back to that in a minute. Macclesfield Town have been relegated to the National League after the English Football League won an appeal against the points deduction. The decision means a reprieve for Stevenage, who will retain their League 2 status. I know Mark's got some very strong views on this one, so I'll hand over the floor. The floor is yours, Mr. H.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered this chestnut before, right? So my opinion hasn't changed, Mark, right? In an ideal world, Macclesfield gets relegated for financial mismanagement, right? In the sense that they kept going cap in hand to the Football League to look for their players to get paid their salary every week. And there was month on month that players weren't being played. So obviously the club weren't fulfilling their obligations to paying the players and the staff, right? That said, they rightfully got relegated, and that should be the case. Having said all that, Stevenage, right, should have been relegated for having a non-competitive football team.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Can't remember the amount of games, but Stevenage only got 5 points the whole season.
Yeah, exactly.
5 points.
Exactly.
No, you sit there and you think to yourself, there must be people in the I still call it the conference. I don't know what it's called now.
Yeah, I get it.
But there must be clubs at the top of the conference that are chomping to the bit to get into the Football League.
Absolutely right.
Right? And you've got a club that's being that non-competitive. I mean, they should thank their lucky stars that haven't been relegated just for not competing, full stop.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on that makes you scratch your head, isn't there? And that moves you very nicely on to the next story, which is Heart of Midlothian and Partick Thistle have each been fined £2,500 by the Scottish FA for going to the courts to try and reverse their respective relegations. The two clubs were unhappy with how the vote to curtail last season unfolded and their subsequent demotion on a points per game basis. Their challenge went to court, then arbitration, but was then unsuccessful. They have now been found guilty of breaching the Scottish FA's Rule 78 by taking the issue to court. What a situation.
All I would say, Mark, is right. The figure is just, a symbol, really, to turn around and say, you did wrong. You shouldn't have done it. We're going to fine you $2,500. The issue for both the clubs, both Partick Thistle and Hearts, is that they're both going to be faced with a massive legal bill.
Yep.
And the chances are that, I would have thought that there'll be one or two Scottish clubs who'll probably try to help them out with the legal bill expenses. But
yeah,
the thing is Scottish football's in such a mess at the minute because obviously, they're trying to protect themselves. The club's concerned, they're trying to protect themselves because they don't want to get relegated. My own personal feeling on it was Hearts at the end of the day were at the bottom of the Scottish Premier League. The bottom of the Scottish Premier League, right? Now, admittedly, the season didn't finish, and they could have stayed up. But was it looking likely given their performances throughout the season? No, it wasn't. Yeah, I go back to when I talk about the English leagues. And League One, I do have a degree of sympathy for Tranmere. They'd won 4 games or 5 games on the spin. They got themselves out of the relegation zone, but because of the mathematical logistics they used, they ended up back in the bottom 3 and hence got relegated from League One. Right? Now you could use the argument because they were on a bit of a roll before lockdown, they'd already got themselves out of the bottom three. So the chances are, they probably would have had a great chance to stay up. And like I said to you last week, the problem there for me is that we've had a situation where, they've decided that everybody starts in September 12th, right? All these Football League clubs that were saying, we can't afford it, testing's going to cost too much. What's changed all of a sudden?
Yeah.
And these same clubs have gone out and are spending money on players and bringing in new players. And like Tranmere said, there was a tweet from Tranmere the other day saying, it's strange how all of a sudden all these clubs were saying, oh no, we can't afford to finish the season. But then all of a sudden, they all can afford to start the season on the 12th of September, and they can afford to bring in new blood. To me, that's a hypocrisy.
Yep, I can't disagree with you there. I think that is exactly the case. So, moving on to our next story, we're going to keep things fairly short on this one because there's not an awful lot other than reading out the headline really on the next couple, I would assume. So, England women, Phil Neville's successor could be appointed next week. Phil Neville's replacement as England women's manager could be announced by the Football Association next week. He said in April he'd not extend his deal past July 2021 after the European Championship, which England will host, was moved to 2022. It's not clear whether or not he or the new boss will lead Great Britain at the rescheduled Tokyo Olympics next summer. So, is that?
All I would say about that, Mark, is we talked about it briefly. Is it would seem that there's two main runners and riders. One is the current Dutch manager, who obviously got them to the World Cup, got the Dutch to the World Cup final, and obviously they won the last European Championship that was held for women. So she's top of the FA's list at the moment. And then there's also an English coach whose name escapes me. Maybe you can remember it, but she's actually coaching over in America at the moment.
Is it Jill Ellis?
What was that?
Jill Ellis, is it?
Yeah, Jill Ellis. And I think those two are the two main protagonists that obviously the English FA feared, Mark. So
the other two I've heard mentioned, Nick Cushing of Man City, I think is a former coach, and Casey Stoney, obviously former England player.
Yeah, I find the Stoner one's a bit of a strange one for me because, she's only just recently taken over at the Man United job, so it would be a very, very quick elevation. And they've only recently, I think in the last 2 seasons, they've only recently been promoted to the Women's Premier League. So bit of a strange one there. Maybe a left field choice, but I mean, I'm fully expecting if they can get the deal done for this Dutch manager to come in and take over.
Onwards and upwards to the Lionesses. See how they get on. So we move on to the next story. Former Arsenal and Man United striker Robin Van Persie has returned to boyhood club final as a coach. Oh, he'll be manager by next week then.
Well, pity his name wasn't Alexander Pirlo. It would negate being a coach. He would have went straight in as manager, But I mean, I just added that one just in case people were interested. Obviously, it's a name that's synonymous with Arsenal.
That's right.
And Man United, and winning the Premier League. So,
surprise.
Good luck to him. Good luck to him on his appointment.
Last time he was at
the
final, they were quite successful, weren't they? So it's no surprise he's gone back there. Wish him all the best, and obviously being Dutch, he's going to be happy because he's back home. So fantastic, good for him. Hope he does well there. So we'll move on to our next story. This is one that I didn't even know about, and I'm glad you've raised this, Mark. This relates to Jack Leslie. Jack Leslie was a black footballer, and there was a statue campaign. They've managed to reach the goal for it, thankfully. They've raised £1,000 to erect a statue of a footballer who was dropped from the England team when selectors discovered he was black. Jack Leslie would have been the first black person to play for the nation, having been selected in 1925. A campaign for his statue outside Plymouth Argyle's Home Park Stadium has attracted donations from nearly 2,000 people. Leslie joined Argyle in 1921, stayed there for 14 years, made 401 appearances and scored 137 goals. Jack was not just a great footballer, club chairman Simon had said. He's become a symbol of the injustice in our game and in our society. I hope that when we have his statue up, it will become an enduring symbol of the progress we can make in fighting the evil of racism. So basically, people assumed because his name was Jack Leslie that he was actually white marked, didn't they? And when they found out he was black, they actually dropped him from the England team. It's absolutely disgraceful behaviour.
I know.
Absolutely abhorrent. That's horrible.
Because obviously they assumed by the name that he was white, but obviously as soon as they found out that, he was a black player, they obviously rescinded his opportunity to play for England. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like anything else in life, it should be purely based on your abilities, and obviously he had earned the right by the amount of goals that he'd scored for Plymouth Argyle.
Yep. Argyle supporter and comedian Josh Widdicombe said the campaign had shined a light on racism in football. Mr. Foxsmith said, "We want to use the Jack Leslie story to highlight those issues, to challenge prejudice, to challenge discrimination, and to show in 2020 we can be better than we were in 1925. Absolutely, 100%. Couldn't echo those sentiments anymore myself.
Spot on, mate.
Yep.
Absolutely spot on.
Bang on the money. Right, at that point, that brings us very nicely to the end of that section of today's show. So we're going to take a little break now, and when we come back, we'll be doing Saints transfer news and gossip.
On Fiesta 95 FM with Mark C and Mark H. It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show.
Right, welcome back, everybody. We are here with everything in the Two Saints Show, and talking of everything on the Two Saints Show, Saints transfer news and gossip. So, possible outs. Pellegrino wants Southampton outcast Carrillo. AZ Alkmaar reportedly weighing up a move for Wesley Hoot. Besiktas offered chance to sign Mario Lemina. Crystal Palace also reportedly interested in Saints midfielder Harrison Reed. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Tottenham complete signing of Southampton midfielder. And possible wins. Saints join battle to sign Harry Wilson, report claims. Southampton in race to sign West Ham's Grady Diangana. There's another report there. Southampton identify Oral Mangala as midfield replacement. Saints seal Walker Peters deal. And the worst kept secret on the south coast for the entire transfer window so far, and probably will be, Saints complete Salisu transfer. Right, so we go back to the beginning of that little lot. We've also got Saints looking to shift out almost an entire team in the hopes of rebuilding the squad. So we go right back to the very beginning, Mark. And the very first article, surprise, surprise! It seems a former Saints manager would very much like to take Guido Carrillo to Vella Sarsfield. I'll let Mark explain to everyone who that manager may be. What a surprise.
We really need to read the article. So what I would fill people in on is that Pellegrino Grino has been appointed manager of Sarsfield over in Argentina.
That's right.
Now, the previous manager was Gabriel Heinz. If anybody remembers him from his days at Manchester United, the Argentinian centre back, right, and obviously they've gone for another Argentinian centre back in Mr. Pellegrino. But obviously, when I read the article, Mark, right, I had the prayer mats pointing due east, so I was looking for plenty of the sunshine, right? And I was sat there, and I'm thinking to myself, please let it happen, please let it be true, please.
It's like we actually get some money.
But I just, as sure as eggs, it's going to be a loan deal, right?
Yep.
And we're just going to end up running down his contract. This bloke signed us for £19.5 million, and you just makes you want to cry.
Absolutely.
But as it say, we're going to be discussing this a bit more later on in this section, but. As I say, let's hope it is true and it's another one off the books.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right on that one. Deary me. So, moving on to AZ Alkmaar, which is obviously a Dutch team. AZ Alkmaar reportedly weighing up a move for Wesley Hoot. So they're considering a move to sign Saints defender Wesley Hoot, according to reports. He joined Saints from Lazio 2017 for £15 million. They spent most of the past 18 months out on loan at Celta Vigo and then Royal Antwerp. He's earned 7 senior caps for his country and played 21 times for Antwerp this season. According to a report translated from Belgian outlet Voetbal Premier, Eredivisie outfit AZ are now weighing up a move for their former defender in preparation for a Champions League qualifier this month. As believed, Mark, Saints could be looking at a loss of over £9 million.
Yeah, I mean,
it's what I say.
All I'd say to that, Mark, is right. What worries me is in the article, it references that AZ Alkmaar are interested in him, and they're also interested in signing Terence Kalunga, right? Now, both of these players, right, although Terence Kalunga would have took a salary cut because obviously Huddersfield got relegated from the Premier League a season ago now, right? You know, what worried me was AZ Alkmaar have expressed an interest, but yet they've said that they're going to have difficulty paying their wages, both players' wages, right? I'm sat there thinking, hang on, if you're having problems paying the wages, you're going to have problems paying the transfer fees. So I don't actually think that anything really is going to materialise, because I don't believe that AZ Alkmaar have the money in the bank to be able to fund the move for Wesley Hoyt in the first place.
I think you're probably right on that one, to be fair. So we'll move on to the next one. So this is relating to another want-away Saints player. Oh wow, we led to believe he's a want-away, but it's a shame really, because I think this guy could do a cracking job for us if he could get his head in the right place, Mark. But anyway, this is news that Besiktas have been alerted to the possibility of signing Saints midfielder Mario Lemina, according to reports in Turkey. The 26-year-old spent last season on loan at Galatasaray. It's understood they're not planning to take up their option to purchase the player. So, be an interesting one. We obviously purchased him. He joined Saints from Juventus for around 15 million in 2017. Has made 52 appearances for the club, surprisingly, scoring twice. I'm surprised he's appeared that many times, Mark, to be fair.
All I would say, Mark, is while I agree with the sentiment, that ship has sailed. You know, the Lemina ship has sailed. Yeah. And now we're just going to be faced with a summer, or at least the next few weeks, of Saints trying to hoik him around Europe to any club that will take him.
That's right.
And it's a sad state of affairs of a person, you know, although he was at Juventus, you know, and he played in Champions League games and everything else. It's a player, if you look at his record, it's a player that's failed to establish himself at any club that he's gone to.
That's right.
So that tells you that there's a bit of a flaw in the character there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think to be fair, I think we spent enough time on this show discussing Mario Lemina over the last, I don't know how long it's been, 3, 4, 5 transfer windows, is it? I don't know. Anyway, so this is the next report. Crystal Palace reportedly interested in Saints midfielder Harrison Reed. But we're led to believe Fulham have got fast refusal for an £8 million. We believe it's an £8 million buyout clause, Mark?
That's correct.
Is it time he moved on, do you think? Do you think his time at Saints is done?
Look, the thing is this is the last year of this season is the last year of the Saints contract, right? Yep. If Saints, you know, obviously we're wanting to move in a different direction, and we're wanting to try and bring in, you know, the players that Ralph wants and all the rest of it. So even though I would love to be able to keep him, Mark, but the fact that he's got a year in his contract, and let's be honest, if Saints rocked up with him tomorrow and said, we want to offer you a new contract, I don't think he would sign it, because he's been a bit part player while he's been at Saints. You know, it started off also promisingly, and I blame the club for that, because they had opportunities where they could have sent him out on loan before and they didn't. And that stifled his development as a footballer. You know, it stifled his development as a footballer. But anyway, the thing is no, I would sell. £8 million, it's a no-brainer. You'd sell, it gives Ralph, you know, monies to move it on.
Money in the war chest.
We are looking for a central, you know, we are looking for a central midfielder, and unfortunately, because of what's happened with Harrison, I don't think his future's at Saints.
No, and I would argue as well, Mark, we need a decent war chest, because it's time we signed a decent central midfielder, isn't it? You know, we do need to spend some decent money in that area, so I agree with you. I'd take the £8 million and put it in the war chest.
100%, and the club. I mean, much as I want to see the youngsters develop, but we can't afford just to have, you know, if Romeu's not playing, can't afford just to have Will Smallbone as a backup.
No, and in fairness to Will Smallbone, it would be too much too soon in his development, in my opinion, Mark.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with you, mate. You know.
Right, move on. So, Tottenham Hotspur completed the signing of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Southampton. He signed it's a £15 million transfer. It's a 5-year deal. So, wish you all the best, Pierre. Thanks for your efforts at Saints. Enjoy yourself at Spurs.
Yeah, I have to say, his comment and reaction to the Saints fans. I mean, what was it? 5 words, 6 words. It wasn't more than a couple of seconds. And I thought to myself, well, good luck. No sour grapes here. But I just, the thing is, Mark, and I've said it to you many a time. When I was at the fans forum and I asked the question, I'd have got rid of him last summer.
Honestly,
because it's clear then that he wasn't prepared to commit to Southampton Football Club.
No, I've got to be honest, Mark, having looked back at the footage as well, if you actually look at the reaction from the question you asked, it's very clear he had no intention of signing a contract. He had every intention of leaving, you could tell that then.
Yeah.
And not only that, it was the way that everyone else sat at the table with him squirmed as well.
I mean, don't get me... Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong, Mark, right? Don't get me wrong. The club have this where they turn around and they say, the player's got a year left in his contract, he's out the door, right? But the thing is if you're known from 2 years out, I would have put him on the transfer list there and then because he wasn't prepared. He wasn't prepared to commit, and Saints naively kept making offers to him in relation to a new contract, and those offers were being turned down, as I understand it.
Right, I mean, in fairness, even Martin Semmens recently said, didn't he, that if the transfer didn't go through this summer, they'd offer him another contract. I mean, you both said, well, he's not going to sign it.
Exactly.
So even then, they were still saying, we'll offer another, well, he's not going to sign it. So, I think he nailed his colours to the mast quite early on.
I'm not being funny, but, the thing is I don't like the idea of the players holding the club to ransom, and there was a little bit of that here. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's my belief that offered more money, and yet the player gets his wish and goes to Tottenham. Don't get me wrong. Like I said to you before, the whole thing that's happened here is a draw, and I know we're going to move on to the other side of the other aspect of that deal.
Yep. We are, absolutely right. So the other side to the deal is obviously it was 2 separate deals, but the other side to the deal obviously is the fact that Saints have signed Kyle Walker-Peters from Tottenham on a 5-year deal, coming the other way, which I think is good business for the club. Player that wants to be a young player that's going to develop with us, hopefully. Certainly fits Ralph's style. Pretty impressed with what he did since the restart, Mark. I think he had one dodgy game. Other than that, he's been quite solid, hasn't he? So good addition, I think.
Yeah, now that he's here, I can say absolutely fantastic deal for us. And let's hope he develops and moves on. He's making all the right noises. I know you're going to come on to that in a minute. But he's making all the right noises. Absolutely, and he showed what an astute acquisition he would be for the club during Project Restart.
A couple of other ones, just throwing a quick in, we'll come back to the Kyle Walker-Peters and what he actually said and stuff. So Saints have joined the battle to sign Harry Wilson, apparently. And Saints are apparently in the race to sign West Ham's Grady Diangana. We don't know if that's 100% or not. We'll come back to those in a bit. So, Kyle Walker-Peters. Right, bear with me a second. So, obviously, the manager said this is a position we've been looking to improve, and Kyle does this for us. I think he can develop his game here even more too. And Kyle Walker-Peters himself basically said that it felt like the right place to be. It feels like a really good place for me to keep developing as a player and make the best out of what I have. The club definitely fits the way I like to play, and I hope people were able to see that during the last month or so of the season. I feel like I've already developed in the time I've been here, and that's a big part of wanting to stay, obviously. It's a club with a great reputation for improving young players. Personally, I found it really valuable working under this manager with his ideas on the game and what he expects from you as an individual. The way we finish the season gives us real optimism about where we're heading to. It just feels like a really good place for me to keep developing as a player and make the best out of what I have. That's quite a refreshing statement to hear, Mark, and it's really nice to hear that.
100%. And when you read what he's had to say, you just think to yourself, we've signed a winner here.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
we've signed somebody that will help to move the club forward.
Definitely.
And obviously it's somebody who wants to embrace Ralph's philosophy and Ralph's style of play, which is great. The thing is you just want a team of players that's all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. So we're just going to run through a couple of the other ones, and we'll go through them briefly, and we'll come back to those if we decide to. Chances are we'll probably just keep them brief anyway. Saints have joined Leeds and Newcastle in a battle to sign Liverpool winger Harry Wilson, according to a report in the Mail on Sunday. That's been reported in the Daily Echo. Southampton, reports say Southampton are in the race to sign West Ham's Grady Diangana. So Grady Diangana is attracting plenty of attention this summer, with Sunday people saying Saints, Crystal Palace and Leicester City want the attacker. He goes into next season off the back of an inspired spell at loan spell at West Brom. Scored 8 goals, contributed 6 assists as the Baggy sealed automatic promotion. So there's 2 there Saints been linked with.
Yeah.
Southampton.
I would say, I'm just going to cover those quickly, Mark, right? So both of those are attacking right players.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Essentially wide, but attacking right players, right? So Harry Wilson, he'd been on loan at Derby, spent on loan at Bournemouth. Not sure whether he's who I would want to bring in. I think if he was to come in, it would probably be a loan deal. I can't see Liverpool agreeing a transfer deal for him personally. I think it'd be another loan deal. The West Ham one, I don't see happening. They farmed him out on loan to West Brom. He had a successful season last season at West Brom. Like you said, 8 goals, I think it was, and 6 assists, or the other way around. And I think to myself, at the end of the day, if he's doing that well out on loan at a championship club that's been promoted, the chances are they won't look to farm him out the rival Premier League club.
Yep.
And I certainly can't see them at the minute selling him. So that's just those 2 news stories anyway.
Yep, I see you right there. Excuse me, a bit frog in my throat there. Right, so that's all of those. Southampton have identified Orel Mangala as a midfield replacement.
Yeah,
so,
it's a guy who plays for Stuttgart.
That's right, yep.
I actually, even though he's a cheaper option, I think he'd be a better option given, his age. He's round about the same age as Weston McKennie.
Yeah.
But I just think there seems to be a greater experience there. He plays for an unfashionable German club in Stuttgart.
Yeah.
And in terms of the money that's being quoted, I just think it's not even a gamble, Mark. So I would tend to be more tempted to go with him than go with Weston McKennie.
Yeah.
I think Weston McKennie has a lot of hub and bub about him.
Yeah.
And obviously he's recognised because he plays for Schalke. Schalke is one of the more mainstream German sides, if you like.
Yep.
But I do think Mangala's a bargain at the price that's being quoted for him. And would I take him? Yeah, I would.
Yep.
I'd take him ahead of Weston McKennie because Weston McKennie obviously 20 million sounds much more of a gamble.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely right. So moving on to the next one. Saints have finally completed the transfer of Mohamed Salisu, probably the worst kept secret on the entire South Coast. He's basically been in quarantine for 2 weeks, so we basically effectively signed him a couple of weeks ago, but have now officially announced it. And the 21-year-old joins on a 4-year deal. So we look forward to seeing how he develops at Saints, Mark.
I mean, I can't wait to see him in a Saints shirt. I can't.
And let everyone know, the guy is a bit of a beast, and he certainly can move. He certainly can play a bit.
You hear so much. It's one of those where you hear so much about him. Yeah. I just hope he doesn't turn out to be a Vestergaard because people had big hopes for him.
Absolutely right.
The Salisu's a lot younger.
Yeah.
And I do think that's important. And like you said, he's much more mobile around the pitch and stuff like that.
Absolutely
And
right.
I really, really can't wait to see him in a Saints shirt because, like I said, the other thing that's nice about him is he's left-footed. So it gives Ralph the option at least that, if he wants to play a left footer in the left central midfield or central defensive position, he can do.
Yeah, for anyone listening, a lot of these players get overhyped. If you want to see anything about this guy, do watch his YouTube videos, the highlights of him playing. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
What you get is basically, he does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah, and it does, to be fair to him, it does seem like that, Mark,
Definitely. Absolutely right.
So I have a bit of reaction to, I hear you have a bit of a reaction to his signing in the second article where he basically, saying about how much he wanted to come to the club and how much he's looking for getting out there.
Yeah, he said, for me, it's been a dream since I was a child to play in the Premier League, and I'm very, very happy to be here. We all know it's a very tough league. I'm ready for everything to put all I can into helping the team. It's a very good feeling to be a Saints player. I'm very happy to be a part of the club, and I'm looking forward to starting here. It's a very good club for me to develop my skills and to learn a lot as a young player, and I'm very happy to join. Southampton has a fantastic history in developing young players, and I hope I do my best to add to that group. I saw it, and I'm very happy that the club fans... he's obviously been aware of the online clamour for his arrival. He said, I saw it, I'm very happy they're welcoming me so warmly and are happy with me. He said, I'm going to try my best to put happiness on their faces. Yes, just remember, everybody, you've welcomed him warmly on social media, so don't berate him the second he makes one error, because don't forget, he's 21 years old. He is developing still. He is likely to make the odd mistake. So let's not slaughter him like we're great at doing with some of our players in the past. Give the guy a chance. Remember how warmly you've greeted him and give him a chance.
Yeah. Trust me, Mohammed, we'll be behind you all the way.
Definitely.
And just to say, good luck, mate. We'll be watching your progress with interest.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So that moves on to the next topic, the next conversation, which is Saints are looking to shift almost an entire team to help rebuild the squad. So with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg now flaunting himself around fields in Hertfordshire, Saints will now be looking to get a few more out the door to free up wages and bring in some cash to rebuild the squad. Saints could see 11 players depart this summer if they could shift everyone on the books that they would see as satisfactory to requirements. With Højbjerg gone, it's 1 down, 10 to go. Given that we've already shipped out Mario Yoshida and Cedric Soares, it's an astonishing total. At the back, getting Fraser Forster off the books will be difficult, and it seems we've not quite reached the point where the keeper will accept a substantial drop in wages. Now, players they're talking about, we could obviously see the departures of, and we'd probably like to, with the likes of Mario Lemina, Guido Carrillo, Wesley Hoot and Mohamed Elyounoussi, Harrison Reed, Sofiane Boufal possibly. So that's about 7 players on the books who played in the first team but are now out of the picture a little bit and on decent wages. Add to this Yannick Vestergaard, who's obviously been touted as a possible out, along with the likes of fringe players like Josh Sims, Jake Hesketh and Sam McQueen. That makes a grand total of 11. So if you got rid of those 11, you'd have a pretty big war chest, Mark. But chances are it's not likely to be in this window, is it? It's likely to be over a couple of windows, or 2 or 3 windows.
You add to that the likes of Alfie Jones, Harry Lewis, and I can't remember who the other one is. But you sit there and you go, there's a squad of players there.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely right.
A lot of them, all of them more or less have no chance of making an impact in the first team squads as it is at the minute.
Yep.
The only exception to that would be Boufal. And the reason why he comes up in the article is obviously because he's only got a year left in his contract.
That's right.
And his time at Saints, even though we've seen glimpses, he has been a bit of an enigma.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Absolutely right. But no, I just thought we should include that and sort of speak about it a little bit. But it more or less says what it is on the tin, and it just shows that the recruitment side of things and the moving people out side of things have a lot of work on this summer.
That's right.
Rid of a lot of dead wood. But Mark, when we're talking about the younger players, right, and youth, the ones that have come through the academy, right, the problem is that this is a legacy of Les Reed, because what he's done is he's stuck young players on lucrative contracts for 3 or 4 years, and the thing is you've now got players who are 22 that don't look like they're going to be anywhere near getting even involved in the first squad. Right. So this is still a hangover from the Les Reed years.
Absolutely right, definitely. Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that at all. Yeah, absolutely bang on there. Right, I think we'll that brings us nicely to the end of all the transfer news for today. Right, well that's brought us brilliantly to the end of today's show, Mark. Goodbye from myself, Mark C.
Yeah, and it's goodbye from me. I hope everybody's taking care of each other. look after yourself and all stay well.
Join us again next week when the Two Saints go marching in again. And remember, check us out on Facebook, Two Saints Show, on our YouTube channel, the Two Saints Podcast Show, and you can catch us on Acast, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can catch our podcast there. Great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and listening.